Welcome in or welcome back, depending on whether you're a first-time visitor or a repeat offender. We appreciate having you here either way. This is Channel 910. I'm Johnny, and this is the intro music. All right, so what are we talking about today? Well, we are continuing the conversation that we started in the last video, which if you haven't seen it, don't worry, you can still follow along here pretty easily, but we did talk about albums that have never had a vinyl release. And you can find that video down in the description, or I'll link it up here somewhere. So you can check that video out if you want to see that. Today, we're talking about not ones that never had a vinyl release, but ones that did have a vinyl release, but it may only be available as an original pressing, which tend to be very expensive, or it had a reissue, but the reissue has even become very hard to find and equally as expensive. So these are basically records that are out there that you can get, but it's very hard to get them unless you have a lot of disposable income. So we'll talk about these today. It's not an exhaustive list. There are probably a lot more records out there than this that belong on this list. I've just grabbed 20 that came to my mind, probably things that are on my own personal list that I'm trying to get. So if there's ones that I don't talk about that you think need to be brought to the light of day, drop it down in the comments. And while you're at it, you can like or subscribe or share, all those things that you do on YouTube. We do appreciate it. It helps us out. So we'll start with the one that I think is probably on a lot of people's lists, and that is Anima from Tool. This is their 1996 album. It's their follow-up to Undertow, which is the one that really got them a lot of recognition on radio and MTV. This is my favorite Tool record. I do have an unofficial pressing of it. It sounds okay, but I'd love to have an official release of this album. The original ones are extremely expensive, and what I've done for this video is if it's got an original release, then I've gone on Discogs and kind of found the average price that you'll end up having to pay for this thing. And I've also done the same for represses if these things have represses. So this particular album, no official represses. An original copy is going to run you on average about $900 US and up. Very expensive record. So I'm hoping that in 2026, it'll be the 30-year anniversary of this record. Maybe we'll see something from Tool. I talked about it in the last video. They're not the best band for catering to the needs of their fan base. So who knows? We'll probably get a shit ton of hoodies and baseball caps and maybe like an acrylic skull with something inside of it. But the record, who knows? So another one that is high on a lot of people's lists, it's high on mine, and I'm actually hoping it's kind of, this album is what kind of sparked the idea for me to even make this video. This is Alice in Chains' self-titled record from 1995. I'm hoping, knock on wood, that we're going to get a reissue of this in November, which is when the album came out, was in November of 95. Alice in Chains has been pretty good about releasing their stuff right around the exact anniversary of when it came out back in the 90s. So hoping that this one, it's kind of the last one I need to add to the collection. It's been elusive because an original pressing is going to cost you on average $400 US and up. I've seen sealed copies that go for $800, $900, $1,000. They're very hard to get a hold of. And again, these are 90s presses, so they would have had to have been kept in very good condition for a very long time in order to really make it worth that kind of money. So it's one that I think is on a lot of people's lists. So the same band from the following year in 1996 Alice in Chains released the MTV Unplugged album. Now, it's acoustic, which I think if you're an Alice in Chains fan, the band has a lot of really good acoustic material, and it's really highlighted well on the MTV Unplugged album. Now, this one does have an original and a reissue. Music on Vinyl released this. I think it was in 2012. They reissued it. However, the original is going to cost you somewhere around $500, and you're looking at probably about $300 for the reissue. They've become that scarce and in high demand, which is kind of understandable. But you're talking about a lot of money for these, so it would be great to see a reissue. There's a lot of unofficial versions of this one out there too, but if you want an official pressing of this album, then you're going to pay a lot right now. So it'd be great to see a reissue. Another one, shifting gears genre-wise, we're going to Miss Taylor Swift. This is an artist that you might say, well, her stuff is just oversaturated. There's tons of it. And there's like 500 variants of every single album. Except for this one. Record Store Day back in 2023 released the Long Pond Studio Sessions. And it was somewhere in the neighborhood of like 100,000 copies. It was a lot of copies of this record. But then it just disappeared. It got scooped up real quick, sold out everywhere, and then the secondary market, the prices went up, and they have not come down. So you're looking at paying probably around $300 for an original pressing. There is a Chinese counterfeit version of this album that I've heard sounds okay, but if you want the real deal, you're going to be spending about $300 on it. Now, another album that kind of surprising that this one right here, actually, Duran Duran's Wedding album from 1993. Now, yes, it's a 90s pressing, so yes, there were a lot less vinyl records out there in the 90s, but it's still early 90s, and it's freaking Duran Duran. It's one of the biggest groups on the planet at the time. And it's a huge album, too. A lot of great songs on this record. And it only has original pressings. And the rest of their catalog has been repressed, to my knowledge, except maybe one or two more obscure Duran Duran albums. But this one being a huge commercially successful album, to never get a repress it's astonishing. There's unofficial pressings out there of it. I have one as well because I wanted to compare. And this Brazilian pressing is 2 LPs. The unofficial is 1 LP. So you're going to get a little bit of a different quality in the sound, the mastering, the presentation. So you got to be careful with some of these unofficials when you get them. There's not as much care put into it as it was with the official pressing. So that's why it's, having unofficials is nice to kind of fill the gap in your collection for a little while, but you kind of want to move up to the real deal at some point. So Duran Duran Wedding album, that's a big one. One that's on my personal want list that has been very hard to find is White Zombie's Super Sexy Swingin' Sounds. Now, this is a remix album of Astro Creep 2000, the big album from 1995. Super Sexy was released in 1996. Basically, it's all the songs from Astro Creep just remixed. Came out as a 2 LP, extremely limited, and now you're looking at probably paying $700 and up for this record. There's some unofficials out there, but even the unofficials are over $100 at this point. So it's not, a must-have for anyone's collection, but it's a pretty cool one, and there's a lot of nostalgia in it for me, being a teenager from the 90s. So let's see what we can do about getting that on vinyl, huh? Okay, so sticking with more of like the metal genre. Megadeth. A couple albums that could have fallen into this category, but I chose one because it's probably one of their biggest, and that's 1992's Countdown to Extinction. This record has a lot of radio hits on it, has a lot of just great deep cuts from Megadeth. This one, if you get an original, you're going to spend quite a bit, somewhere in the neighborhood of about $300 and up, depending on which country's pressing you get. There are some unofficials. There's some picture discs out there. There is a mobile fidelity pressing of this record as well, but that one is going to run you about $400, $450 if you're lucky. So really, you're just as well off buying an original pressing. Another metal band popular in the 80s and into the early 90s was Motley Crue. Now, they were kind of falling off a little bit around 94 when they released a self-titled album, but it only has original pressings. There's some unofficials, yes, but the original pressings, and I think all of them are from like Europe. There's none from the U.S. You're looking at $350 and up for this record. Not one of their most popular, but it's one that I think would really do well from a reissue, because probably not a lot of people, unless you're a die-hard collector, are going to spend that kind of money for this record. So, a nice $30 reissue would be great for this one. All right, so now I'm going to drop a couple that are on my list. 9 Inch Nails. The first one I'll talk about is kind of a combo deal, because when it was initially released, it was released as two 12-inch EPs, and that's Closer to God, numbers 1 and 2, from 1994. Now, these were UK presses. They've never been reissued. I can't even find unofficial counterfeit versions of it. I did find one further down the spiral. Again, it's a unofficial pressing, and it's on colored wax. Sounds pretty good, and I probably would do it with Closer to God if it even existed, but it doesn't even exist. You can only get these in their original form, and if you buy the two separately, combined price is going to be around $300, and it's really just a bunch of remixes with one like pseudo original song. So, you're talking about a lot of money for something that, unless you're a die-hard collector of 9 Inch Nails, I don't see too many people paying that kind of price. So, I don't think further down the spiral is going to get an official release. I doubt this one will either. So, I mean, hey, even an unofficial at this point would be welcome. So, that's another one to add to the list. Another big one, major studio release from 9 Inch Nails, was Year Zero. This is from 2007. It's only been on vinyl 3 times. I think one of them's unofficial, to be honest. So there's, I think, only 2 official releases from 2007. You're talking $400 and up. I've seen it for as much as $700-800 for this record. Very expensive. It's a good record, though. Probably my favorite after the Downward Spiral. It would be a great one to add to the collection, but I can't quite afford that much money for that one record. So it would be great to see a repress of that one. And 9 Inch Nails has done a good job with a lot of their reissues, whether it's all the stuff from the definitive collection. I would definitely be all over that one. So now one that kind of, it's going to buck the trend a little bit here. The Refreshments, and I think, yeah, I've got it down there on the wall. Fizzy Fuzzy Big and Buzzy. So, great album from 1996. Never had an original pressing in 96. So it was pressed for the first time on vinyl. I think it was around like either the late 2010s or early 2020s. I can't remember. But it got a 2000s issue on vinyl. Now, this thing for a while was going for super high prices. You're talking, I saw it for as much as like $200 at some points, easily over $100. It's gotten itself back down to about that, $25 to $30 range. But the reason for that is because that album is mastered horribly. It's the volume levels are way too low. There's no dynamics with it. It's a very flat sounding record. The quality control was nowhere to be found when they put that one to vinyl. So it really needs a reissue, because even though this is one that you can find the repress, it's not worth it. They really just need to do a better job with it. Maybe even putting it on 2 LPs rather than that's just 1 LP. So that's one that is not expensive. It's not super hard to find. It just sounds like garbage. Now, a couple that I've got lined up here come from two of the biggest artists on the planet. Number one being Paul McCartney. And Paul had a lot of 90s and early 2000s albums that extremely hard to get at a good price now. There weren't a lot of them pressed at the time. One is here, Driving Rain. Driving Rain was from 2001. You'll be lucky to find that one for less than probably $250. Very expensive record, very hard to find. And it's not like a great McCartney album. The material on it is not his best. And I think he feels the same way, because there's been no desire on McCartney's part to repress this album. It's just kind of, I feel like he's okay with it just being kind of forgotten about. So fans, as much as they want it to be part of the McCartney collection where he keeps reissuing a bunch of the old albums, whether it's Wings or his solo stuff, we may never see Driving Rain put on wax again. So it's going to continue to probably be a very hard one to get a hold of. Another one that I feel like probably will get a repressing at some point, I just don't know when. That's Memory Almost Full from 2007. Right now, you're going to spend somewhere around $175 to $200 to get an original copy of this. It's one that I need to add to my collection too, but it's very elusive and hard to find now. So again, you don't have to be some obscure artist. You could be Paul freaking McCartney and still have records that are hard to get. Another one from an artist that is freaking enormous. He's real big right now because of his HBO Max documentary, Billy Joel. Billy Joel has 3 volumes of greatest hits, and volumes 1 and 2, pretty easy to get. I think they just got a reissue as well. It's a double album, fantastic set of songs. His greatest hits volume 3, however, which was initially released in 1997, had represses, never had a vinyl release in 97. First time it was laid on wax was around, I think, 2013, and it's only been pressed twice, once on red vinyl, once on gold, and those copies are going to run you somewhere in the neighborhood of about $300 and up. Very hard to find. He's starting to reissue a lot of stuff on vinyl. I know River of Dreams just got a reissue, and again, volumes 1 and 2 of the greatest hits. So I don't know what's stopping him with volume 3. There's a couple of really good tracks on this album that are exclusive to this album, so it would be great to have it in the collection. I just don't feel like spending $300 on what is essentially 97% stuff that I already have. So let's get that repress working, Billy. Come on. Another one for some of the you younger guys out there, guys and gals, is this album came from 2011. I think it's the newest. It's the newest thing on my list, and the reason I find this to be amazing is because it was such a huge, at least the single off of it was so enormously huge at the time. And that's Making Mirrors from Gautier. 2011, it was released a couple times on vinyl, and it got a repress in 2023 in Europe. And it doesn't matter which one you go for, whether it's the original or the reissue, you're going to spend $200 or more on this record. Where, as good of a record as it is, I don't feel like spending $200 on it is justifiable. I feel like, if it had like maybe a special edition $40 version, I could do that. But Making Mirrors from Gautier is one that amazingly to me, being in more of the modern age of music and vinyl, it's very hard to track one down. So there you go. That's the youngest album on my list. So now it's time to get into some of the weirder stuff that's a little bit more niche, and it's only on this list because, you know what, I like it. So maybe by me bringing it to your attention, maybe you've heard of it, maybe you haven't, give you something new to listen to, or it kind of reminds you like, oh yeah, I forgot about that album. Number 1. And this one's not overly expensive, but it's a little much to pay for what it is, but it's a fun album from 2000, one that I used to play quite a bit, and that is Head PE Broke. Now, is it juvenile? Yes. Is it kind of cringe? Sure. Was it a lot of fun in 2000? Hell yeah, it was. And I'd love to have this album on vinyl. It was only pressed in Japan, I believe, and the pressings now are $100 for, you know, kind of an average copy. If you want like a higher end copy, you'll spend more than that. So very niche. If you don't like nu metal, you're not gonna like this album, but it's a fun one. And just kind of amazingly to me, it's, you know, as much as nu metal has had a resurgence, it hasn't been put on vinyl. So major misstep. It needs to get put on wax. Another one that is equally, some people would say, just as cringe, but I'm sorry, I had too much fun with this album back in 97, 98, and that is Insane Clown Posse, The Great Malenko. Now, I can't say that, you know, I can get behind putting their entire discography on vinyl. Some catchy stuff, you know, kind of fun, but this album to me was the best that they ever did. They peaked, and then everything after that was kind of downhill. Great Malenko is a fun, yeah, kind of stupid, yeah, kind of cringe, but you know what? I was a juggalo for a little while. I love this album. Let's get it on vinyl, because the copies that are out there was none from 97. They're all represses, and there's a few of them. Record store day stuff, some colored vinyl, but they're about $250 and up. Very expensive record. So yeah, I would love to see this one get a repress that's actually affordable. Staying with kind of the hip hop feel here is more of a classic from 1996. So you know, it's not super old. At least to me, it's not super old. So maybe next year we'll get a repressing of Straight Off the Streets of Compton from Eazy-E. This was his last album. I think it was actually released after he had passed in 96. So it's not like the biggest like radio friend. Definitely wasn't radio friendly. Not with his style of hip hop and rap. But Eazy-E, my favorite from NWA. You know, I got all the Ice Cube guys and the Dr. Dre guys, but always liked Eazy-E. This would be a great one to have. It's very expensive. You're talking about, you know, $150 and up. That was only released as an original. It's never had a repress. So it would be a great one to see put on vinyl. The last two that I'll talk about are compilations, not soundtracks, but compilations. The first one being a collection from 1993. This is the Beavis and Butthead Experience, not the movie soundtrack, but the Beavis and Butthead Experience, which was an album put together by Geffen Records. Had some Beavis and Butthead tie-ins, especially with the artwork and the name. But there were some songs that featured Mike Judge, the voice of Beavis and Butthead, on the tracks as well. It was just a decent collection of songs from 1993. It was originally pressed on vinyl, on a picture disc, I think. And I think it had a black vinyl version in Brazil. But you're going to pay about $100 and up for those copies. And you're talking about a picture disc now. So, and picture discs from the 90s were not going to sound that great. As much as they've made progress with picture discs here recently, and you can get some pretty good ones. The ones in the 90s I wouldn't trust too much for quality. So $100 is a lot to spend. and it's never had a reissue. So would love to see that that put on vinyl at some point. Again, probably a great record store day release. The other compilation that I'll talk about, this one will kind of wrap the list, wrap it up, is a compilation from 1993 also. Good year for compilations. This is No Alternative. This was like a charity type record where the proceeds went to a charity. I had it on CD. This was at the time the only place you could get the song verse, chorus, verse from Nirvana. But it's got a lot of other cover songs and rarities from a lot of the grunge and alternative groups from the early 90s and late 80s. So it's unfortunately it's only had reissues. I say reissues because it never had a pressing in 93. So the first time it was ever put on vinyl was technically a reissue. So I think it was like 2021 or maybe 2023, maybe as an anniversary. They're going for about $125 now. So and that's on the low end. So the two times it was put on wax, both those variants are fetching pretty high prices. So it'd be cool to see a reissue of that one at some point too. I know Interscope just released DGC Rarities, and I say just released. I don't think it actually ships until October 3rd. But DGC Rarities was kind of around the same time as No Alternative, and kind of had the same feel to it with a bunch of rarities and B-sides. So hopefully, if something like DGC kind of takes off, that No Alternative might take note of that and say, you know what, it might be time for another reissue and get this stuff out there. So No Alternative would be a great one as well to see a repress of, so we're not subject to only the expensive repress. So guys, there's my list of 20 albums that are out there, but they're very expensive and or very, very hard to find because they only either have an original pressing or very elusive represses. So what did I miss? I'm sure there's a bunch. So just put it down there in the comments. Love the discussion. Maybe I'll do another, like a follow-up video on this sometime in the future. But for now, there's those 20. You can check out that other video, the part 1 of this, where I talk about albums that never were pressed on vinyl, if you liked this video. And if you did like it, give it a like. Maybe give us a subscribe. Maybe, I don't know, share the video with your friends. Record collecting is a great hobby. It can be a great community if we all embrace each other and talk about the stuff that we enjoy, like vinyl records. So until the next video, we appreciate you, and we'll see you next time, my dudes.